This is the Business Stuff Podcast. This is where I will share the lessons I've learned from advising thousands of businesses over almost 30 years. Each episode will give you practical insight to allow you to learn from other people's mistakes. I'll be pulling in experts from our team and the world of business, and together we'll make sure your business is giving you what you want. My name is Martin, and this is the Business Stuff Podcast. Hi and welcome to this week's episode of Business Stuff Podcast. I'm here with Jack from the Accelerator team. Happy New Year, Jack. How you doing?
Happy New Year, yeah, good. You have a good one?
Yeah, I think I had the same lurgy as everybody else, but despite that, had a really good time.
Oh, not to rub it in too much, but I was absolutely fine.
I'm glad. I'm a gracious leader. I'm glad that you were better than me. So
well, it's good that you're all right now, though.
Yeah, much better. So today, quite topical. We've all been putting on our LinkedIn and social media, and I'm sure everyone's seen this 100 times over. Set a goal, come up with a plan, blah 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So of course we do sessions. People are more than welcome to come in. We'll run a session with them. But in the true spirit of openness, a bit like Gordon Ramsay will happily sell you food that he's made. He'll also tell you exactly how to make it if you want to do it yourself. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing today, aren't we? We're going to share with people the 4 steps to coming up with a 1-page plan for business or life. It's just a plan, it's not a business plan, but that will help them basically come up with some targets, some goals and objectives.
Yeah.
And is that a reasonable intro?
I think so. You've done my job for me. It's one of those things I'm very upfront with clients when they come into a session. It's like, we're not going to be doing some complicated, convoluted kind of session. It's the whole point of making business strategy, work for you is ultimately because it doesn't have any pretense. It's done in a way where you facilitates good ideas and it just allows you to get those ideas down on a piece of paper and go, right, which ones do I want to focus on first? And then breaking them down into really manageable steps that you can achieve over like a 90-day period, basically.
Or 30 days or a
whatever,
year. Yeah, over a period to suit you, basically.
Totally, yeah.
It's interesting because when we get feedback from clients who've gone through this 1-page plan process, I can't remember what it is, but maybe if James, the producer, is good enough, we can flash up.
Get them straight back to work.
But one of the reviews from someone that we had after a session was something like, the techniques, it was like magical, like mysterious. Mm-hmm. It really isn't, is it? We are, it's like Ramsay chopping an onion. You can chop an onion. Mm-hmm. You can put it in the pan the same way. Like there are no complicated components here, but yet at the end of it, we do often get feedback that, wow, I've never done anything like that.
Yeah.
But what we're going to do is we are lifting the veil here and tell you exactly how to do it if you want to do it yourself. Yeah. And it's basically 4 steps to what we're talking about here. There's hundreds of different things you can do, but what we're talking about here is coming up with a 1-page plan, which will be a summary of the key things to work on with dates, the person who's going to do it, clear, simple objectives with deadlines and people attributed to them. And the idea is that if you do those things, you will have broke the back of the 3 biggest issues in your business today. You won't have solved everything, you won't have fixed them entirely, but you'll have made significant progress.
Absolutely, yeah. We always talk about the now, where, how of business strategy, and essentially that's what a 1-page plan is. It gives you a very brief, high-level summary of where you are right now against where you want to be, and also the how side of things is, as you said, picking those 3 most important areas. And the idea of try not to take on too much is one of the key themes of this planning session, is that you're going to come up with lots of great ideas, but you need to really focus those down on what you think the most important or the most achievable ones are. And the point is, then you have a description of what those 3 areas are, and as you said, they break that down into smaller manageable steps in terms of, this is what I need to do, this is responsible for it, and this is when it needs to be done by. Yeah. And as you said, if all of that stuff gets done,
it's responsible for, not who's going to do it. Mm-hmm. So one of the targets might be complete website overhaul. Well, you haven't got to become a web designer. It's just you need to get someone to overhaul the website. Yeah. So it's worth clarifying that as well, the business owner could do this, or a team could do this. There's many ways to do it. And at the end of it, it's not necessarily, you're not just creating a job list for yourself. It's a list of things that need done in your business, not necessarily by you as the business owner.
Yeah, and obviously it is more difficult with the smaller team you have, is that naturally there's fewer people
More
to give
of it
stuff
falls to you, yes.
But again, and one of the themes of the webinar we did before Christmas was this idea of just because you're by yourself doesn't mean you are truly by yourself. There are other options for you out there, like if you haven't got that big team, then it's looking at potentially outsourcing that.
Outsourcing the web design to somebody else, yeah,
absolutely.
Because someone else is happy to do that, that's their business. So there's 4 steps then, Jack. First step is mind map.
Yes.
Is it worth saying we're talking about this, if we do this with clients, it's normally about half a day, all in, is that?
Yeah, about a 4-hour session. So
they can be shorter, they can be longer, but we're talking roughly half a day here. They aren't all our steps, but the first step is the mind map. What's a mind map, and what? Let's say we're spending about an hour on it. What are we doing for that?
I'm sure everyone's probably familiar with a mind map because it's one of the things that you probably see at school where you have like Shakespeare in the middle with this big circle and lots of things going off there.
Not a Hewitt Grange comprehensive.
You said you did. You did Shakespeare, didn't you?
I've heard of Shakespeare, but yeah, I don't think we did Shakespeare at school. Yeah, no, sorry.
But essentially,
I've seen horrible histories.
Oh yeah, well that's basically the same thing.
It's the same.
Basically, it has a keyword in the middle, and from that you generate ideas off it, and it's a diagram essentially, and it's really good for kind of visual learning to it. And it's an opportunity to just literally unload, dump all of your ideas.
It's just a mind dump, isn't it?
Yeah.
So a mind map is just a mind dump. Now, the important thing there is there's a key word in the middle.
Totally.
You might have already decided that sales are your problem, in which case sales would be the word in the middle. Is it, yeah? Or you might have just said, well, it's profitability. So then that's the word in the middle. Or you might just say, well, we can just dump the whole business. So the business is the word in the middle.
Yeah.
And then sales is, So you come up with something that, what do people do if they don't know where to start? They don't know that profitability or growth or sales, or they don't know that they're the issues. What do they put in the middle if they don't know what else to put in the middle?
It's almost kind of working back, because I'm sure everyone has an idea of what's bugging them at that precise moment. And from that, we could actually use another tool, which we call the 5 whys, or the root cause analysis.
Business isn't working. Why? We haven't got enough sales. Why? Well, the sales we've got are the wrong sales. Why? The marketing's off. Why?
And then eventually you'll get to a point where you can't say why, and that will ultimately become...
Let's solve that problem.
Let's solve that problem. And you may think it has to be kind of a big macro thing, like the word business or the word growth, but if there is something that's sufficiently bugging you, then that's something that you can focus on, and that one page...
For this example, should we say sales then?
Yeah, let's say sales.
So, no, we'll go growth, because I think it gives us a bit more artistic license. So we've got growth, because then we might say, well, how do we solve our growth issue? And let's assume we know how big we are and how big we want to be.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about now is growth is the thing we're going to look at, and we're going to just do a mind dump of all the things that we think affect growth or could enable growth.
Absolutely, yeah.
So growth's in the middle. Sales would be an arm that comes off it. Within that, you might have different service lines, products, pricing. Is that what
geography, geographical markets.
Where are our clients? Who are our clients? How much money have our clients got? Average sale value? All of those things, just you dump them for about an hour.
Yeah, and it's as long as it takes. In some cases, there's a lot, particularly if you've got lots of people in the room. You want everyone to have an opportunity to have their say and get some idea of where there is some consensus, or where people want to have an opportunity just to unload stuff.
Now, an hour sounds like forever, but also people might go, well, you can't solve growth in an hour. It's worth clarifying 2 things here, I think. We're not trying to solve growth in that hour. We're just trying to get a list of all the outline ideas of things that could be in there.
Yeah.
But also detail-wise, so someone might offer up sales, and then they might say, landing pages. It's like, all right, what do you mean by landing page? So you might explore the topic a little bit, but we're also not trying to get bogged down in detail, are we?
Yeah.
You need to understand what they mean so you can put it on the board, But that's about as much detail as we're going into at this point. Is
Yeah, you can go down into, I'd probably say about 3 levels of detail. So you may have sales and off sales, you may have products, and then you may list off some products, either the existing services or new services you've been thinking about. But that's as far as you want to go. You don't want to be like, okay, well, how do we launch
you don't
these
need
new
to get
products
into the
into
nuance of, well, which image are we putting in the catalogue? You're in too far. You're too much detail. You know, are we going to sell chairs? Well, yes, you know, that's about as much detail as you would go into. You might separately talk about your suppliers. You might separately talk about pricing in this discussion, but we're not going too far down the rabbit hole here.
Yeah, but likewise, we're not going too high level where you just put landing pages and go, what's the context of that? And you're like, well, what's that to do with our marketing, our website?
Was it data capture? Was it pricing? Was it upselling? Was it conversion rates? Well, you need to go into sufficient detail.
Yeah, I've always had plenty of times where we've sat down with clients and they've said something like that, and you go, well, what do you mean? Is it this, or this? And I go, yeah, all of it.
All of it, like, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe we need to be a bit more.
Well, should we put them all on there then?
Yeah, it's like, I suppose.
And you shouldn't be afraid to play with this and move things around, should you? You might think that suppliers comes under sales, but it could also be a separate branch of its own, couldn't it?
Yeah, and there's so much crossover.
I don't know if branch is the right word here, but yeah, it's a separate topic of its own. Isn't
but there's so much crossover, and I've done one before with a client where we started introducing kind of cross-referencing, and it started to look like...
Because website landing page has been on sales, but it's also been on email capture, it's also been on conversion. Yeah.
So as a result, it kind of looks like the rings of Saturn, because it's just, everything's just going all over the place. But, you know, but it's also a lot of people like that clarity as well. Go, oh, of course, well, everything's kind of interlinked, and everything's, if I do this, then this will have an impact on this and this and this. So it is really useful to make those connections.
We probably should have covered this off beforehand, but who should be involved in this? Just the business owner, just the leadership team, everybody? It's just the team, not the business owner?
I always encourage to get as many people involved as possible with a good cross-section of who's involved in the business, basically. In a lot of cases, there is like the business owner and maybe 2 or 3 other people, in which case you can have the entire team in. However, when we do these sort of sessions internally, like we can't feasibly have 107 people turn up and let's do a mind map on this.
You also would, I'm not sure you could do it with any more than maybe half a dozen or a dozen. I think it would start to get messy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would do. And that's what we found. We found kind of the sweet spot around that kind of 6 or 8 mark, I would say.
As a max, yeah. But you can do this one-on-one.
Yeah.
And in theory, you can do this on your own. That's the point.
I suppose that's the point that we were trying to make from this, wasn't it? That you can go off and do this by yourself if you put some time aside.
One of the key things, though, is where and when you do it. Ideally, you do it in a single sitting with no distractions.
Yeah.
So you're not doing this on the train while the buffet cart's passing. You're not doing it at the pub or a cafe. You're ideally doing it in a closed-off room with no distractions.
Just notice how I always went with areas revolving around food.
Well, yeah, it's just well, if
that's
I'm not
obviously
working,
your distraction.
I either work, eat, or sleep. That's all I do, really. So, it's about the lack of distraction. So I do them in here. The door's on Do Not Disturb. All phones are turned off. They're not sitting on the laptops. They're not sitting on the phones. It's you need to focus, don't you?
Yeah, and I suppose if we're aiming this at people who want to do this by themselves, you probably need at least one other person there with you. You need that sounding board to facilitate ideas. And that's where the value of us being involved is that we are the ones that can prompt you, we can challenge you, we can encourage different areas of thought which you may not have thought about, because that's the beauty of having lots of people in the room. You get different points of view where you may... Yeah. Everyone may have their own idea of what growth is, but suddenly someone may go, well, you thought about it this way, and you go, actually no, I haven't. Wow. Yeah. And then suddenly that's another branch off over here where you can start discovering that idea.
And an interesting thing about that is the person who's helping you with this doesn't have to know anything about your business, really.
No, not at all.
They've just got to understand what they're trying to achieve. It's one of those things where I don't think you have to have been a footballer to coach a football team. It might help.
Well, there's no correlation between
discipline, fitness, and they're probably more important, aren't they?
Well, there's no correlation between being a good footballer and being a good manager, which is probably fair to say.
Yeah.
And it probably hits a point where diminishing returns, where if someone knows too much about your business, then
they're too close to it. They'll have the same ideas as you.
Exactly. Whilst you need someone who's got a vague understanding, who isn't going to just chuck stupid stuff out there.
Ideally, someone who at least runs a business.
Yes.
Or has dealt with a lot of people who run businesses.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, kind of in the wrong order there, but that's who's doing it, when they're doing it, how they're doing it. We've talked about the mind map. We've spent an hour. I'm trying to think of the most I've had. I've got a fairly large whiteboard there that I use, and you can easily have 50 things on there. Mm-hmm. Probably more if you write smaller, but yeah, you've got a lot of stuff on the board now, haven't you? Yeah. And that's kind of the end of stage one, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Step one. We've done a mind map. We've dumped everything down. We haven't prejudged. There was no silly thing to put on. All of those typical cliched sayings, but it's true. If you think of it, you put it on the board.
Exactly. Yeah.
We've now got a board full of stuff then, Jack. Mm-hmm. Stage two.
So stage two is another tool which we call Pareto analysis. And Pareto analysis essentially is this idea of the 80-20 rule. That's probably another way of putting it, where we're looking for the 20% of stuff on that board that will provide 80% of the benefit. So we're looking for the low-hanging fruit.
We're looking for the low effort, big win.
Yes, we're looking for that stuff.
Yeah.
Because, as you said, we've got 50 things on the board. There's no way you're going to get around to doing that. You're going to spread yourself too thin and nothing's going to get done. You're going to get demotivated. You're going to chuck that mind map straight out
you're going to end up
the bin.
With an action list as long as your arm, and you'll just never start it, will you? Mm-hmm. Never mind finish it. Exactly.
So that's very much what Pareto analysis is. It's like, right, okay, here's 50 things. These are the areas that I think are important, which I think will provide the most benefit to us for the least amount of effort. Again, this is the benefit of the joys of having a wider team around and getting their input in this and starting to develop this idea of consensus. If there's nothing better than when you're in a session and you've done stage one, right, okay, everyone get up and tick where you think's the most important areas. And you've got 3 or 4 areas.
It's a vote, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah, because we're saying 80-20 as well, it's not the 20% of we're not picking 10 out of 50 here, are we?
No.
So it's a slight variation on that. What we're picking is probably the 2, 3, 4 main areas. And if there's more than one person doing it, you say, well, you circle your 3 biggest areas and you circle your 3 biggest areas.
Yeah.
If you've got 4 or 5 people, democracy at play there, you will probably get to the real issues, won't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it's 3, 4. It's not 20%, just for clarity, in case anyone's like, well, I've got 82 things on, I need exactly 19 points. No need.
We'll check the maths out on that one.
It was wrong. It doesn't matter. No.
And it's nothing better than when everyone's on the same page and building that consensus, because when there's consensus, in the most cases, is when everyone's singing on the same hymn sheet, and it's most likely that stuff's going to happen.
The follow through is more likely to happen
because everyone's bought in.
Yeah, because I've seen an example of this actually, where we had 3 directors in a room and everyone circled, and then the MD kind of went, well, I think this is the most important thing, and he was the only one who thought it was. Mm-hmm. And they all worked in the business, they all had valid ideas, and we did actually have 2 other things with 3 votes on, and then 2 with 2 votes on. Like, well, you're probably not going to make the progress you want on that because your other 2 co-directors don't think it's the issue you do. So you either haven't made your case, or you're not actually giving yourself over to the process properly.
And if you hadn't sat down with them and done this exercise, you would have gone off, and the MD would have gone off and done his thing, and immediately you faced resistance because they would be like, why are you fixing that?
Why are you wasting your time on that? Yeah.
Surely we should be working on this and this. Yeah. And you're like, no, we should be doing this because I say so.
Happens all the time, yeah. That's not wanting to get too far into this, but that's how you then disenfranchise your team, that's how you lose people. Yeah, you won't get people to come with you because it's not their journey anymore, is it? You've just dictated the journey.
And that's what we've put a lot of effort into, is allowing people to have their say, and then being listened to. Ultimately, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to get their own way because everyone else gets to have their say, but at least everyone has that opportunity to.
It's important as well, if you're sitting with 5 or 6 people in a team, if that's your complete team, or they are the 5 or 6 people you've nominated from a wider team, it's important that the 5 or 6 people all do have their say. Mm-hmm. and this is where a good organizer or lead will come in really useful. If you've got one person who's never said anything, you've kind of got to go, right, I've had all your ideas.
Yeah.
What have you got? Because just because they're not shouting out doesn't mean they haven't got good ideas. So it's really important that if you are doing this as a group session, you make sure it's an open, safe space where people feel like they can say the silly things and not be laughed at.
Yeah.
And this is why I think sometimes if you do this as, if the MD had done this, in that example I was talking about, they probably wouldn't have got any ideas from the other directors because they would have went, what's the point? We know you don't listen. So it's important to get the right facilitator, isn't it?
And similarly, if you've got that cross section, you're more likely to have these ones lower down who are a bit more reluctant to speak because, oh God, the MD's in the room, this director's in the room, my line manager's in the room. God, like, what was the best say something?
I better not say something that makes them look bad.
Yeah.
So you've got to have trust to do this properly as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So right, we've Paretoed. We've narrowed down. We've either voted or we've just decided if it's a one-person exercise. But either way, you probably, again, most cases you will have three things where you go, well, if I can only work on three things, you probably can't come up with three, can't you?
Yeah, I would say so.
We've got our three topics now, for want of a better word. So we had growth. Let's say through to the next round, through to judges' houses, is
That's
sales.
a dated reference.
How dare you? Prime time TV, 1 hour of that.
1 hour, lad.
So you've got growth was the thing. We've got sales, office space. We need a bigger team. Office space is the challenge, and I don't know, suppliers. We're buying all of the stuff. We need more people if we're going to sell more of it. So let's just say they were the three topics. What do we do with those three topics next then, Jack?
Oh, it's when we roll out tool number 3.
So this is step number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tool number 3 as well.
It is tool number 3. I keep forgetting Pareto is a tool, but
yes. But this one's called force field.
And how far in are we then? So we're kind of like an hour-ish in.
Yeah, we're about an hour-ish in.
Maybe a bit more because you have a bit of intro, you explain the process, but yeah, so we're an hour to an hour and a half in, somewhere like that.
Yeah. So, but this is probably the most crucial part of it in terms of building out into making that bridge between strategy to action points.
Yeah, because it's just ideas at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we somehow need to come up with a list of clear objectives, identifiable, smart objectives.
Yes, exactly. So if we take, basically what the force field does is that it forces you to, using the word force in there, so it's justified already, it's been well named.
And did that come naturally or did you force it into this conversation?
Now we're forcing some banter.
Yeah, that joke did. That laughter was forced at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, okay,
you can tell you're my boss, that's
James,
why.
feel free to cut this if you want.
You can tell I'm just trying to humour my boss, that's all.
Yeah.
So the force field forces you to look at it for this specific strategic area in two different ways. You're looking at the things that you do well in relation to this area and the things you don't do so well. So that's basically step 1 and step 2 of this tool. Is like, right, okay, these are all the things that we do well in relation to sales.
And the way this looks, again, I don't know if you can overlay this, but if sales was the issue, we write sales down the middle of the page, the middle of the sheet, the middle of the board, sales. The things we do well go to the left. They're things we might want to do more of. And the things that aren't so good go on the right. They're the things we should either try and stop, eliminate, or improve because they're not good enough. Is it?
Exactly, yeah. In terms of why it's structured that way, is that ultimately the things you do well are what you consider your positive forces. This is standing a little bit like Star Trek, Star Wars kind of thing going on. So we've got the things that we do well, which are positive forces. The things we don't do so well are our negative forces. And ultimately those two are pushing against each other to hold the strategic area, which in this case sales, in the position where it is at the moment.
So you might have the best products in the world, that's a plus, but you've got the worst website in the world, people can't get the damn thing. Right?
Exactly.
So that might be an example of things that would go either side of the force field for sales.
Exactly, yeah. And the whole idea is that we want to ultimately maximise the positive forces and reduce the negative forces, and as a result, if we're looking at progression of sales, we want that to be pushing across the page. The positive forces pushing that forward and showing progress, and the negative forces are not as strong and they're not holding you back.
Their power over the business are being diminished.
Exactly, yeah. So it's a little bit of GCSE physics mixed with Star Trek.
With some popular culture in there. Yeah.
Yeah, with some sci-fi. So as I said, step 1 and 2 are like, well, let's identify the things we do well. Yeah. So as I said, we're talking about sales, like we may have a really good product, we may have a really good team, we may have a fantastic R&D department that's like not just producing good stuff that we're doing, but also got its finger on the pulse of where the industry's going, so we're always the first to market. Stuff like that. Similarly, on the negative side, as you said, we may have a rubbish website where we're not getting any orders through as a result, and we're primarily aimed at customers, so we're not
confusing market message. People might think, well, yeah, but it looks good, but what is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we've got no sales process. You know, we've got a great
no sales team.
We've got a team that doesn't know what they're doing, but they're trying their best, but they're just kind of always kind of clutching at straws and just kind of snatching at stuff. So, and you can kind of go down that list, maybe 4 or 5 areas of strength and weakness, but that's very much dependent on...
Again, there's no wrong answer on there. You might go, oh, well, actually, we've got a bonus scheme for salespeople. Does that encourage the right kind of sales, or does it just mean sale at all costs? Because as soon as you bonus something, you distort the reality of what happens, don't you? So it could be, well, actually, everything's pretty good, but the bonus scheme really messes around, because people hit bonus, then take the foot off the gas.
Yeah.
We want them to keep going. All right, well, that's your bonus scheme's the problem, isn't it?
Again, we can start to get crossed over with like motivations and whether a bonus scheme's really in line with your sales team. Like, are they motivated by money? Because in which case, there's no point having a bonus scheme. But anyway, we're going to get sidetracked here. So the point is,
I suppose what I was getting at is, sales. There could be a lot of different things on there.
Yeah, some things that could appear on both sides for different reasons.
Yeah, the website could be on left and right.
Yeah.
Oh, well, loads of people find it, but no one's buying anything.
Yeah, rubbish conversion.
Yeah, the conversion's terrible, but it's
Traffic's
visible.
high.
Yeah.
So the point is, we've got, on a high level, what we're doing well, what we're doing so well. So then after we've done that, we revisit that list and go, okay, what's the first thing on the thing that we do well? Let's think of ways of making what we do well even better. So we may start talking about having the best products. How can we make our products better? Like, does it involve...
So if you're Apple and you're known for, I don't know, not necessarily the best product, but the most attractive product to people, well, how do we double down on that? Really bring that home? Get those fans into like raving fans.
Yeah.
How do we lean into that? Yeah.
And again, it's just going down that list, finding 2 or 3 ways of how you can boost that really positive thing to make it even better. We talk about doubling the positive force. So we go down the positive side, similarly we go down the negative side, and rather than doubling that force, we're looking at halving the negative force.
So if we say, if the website example was on there, how do we get more traffic? But also, how do we reduce the number of dropouts on the sales process? They might be what you do. So, well, we need to improve the process. Well, let's review the landing page, improve the product information, etc.
Get some designers in, stuff like that.
Because it's pointless just sending twice as much traffic in, which you can get, if you don't fix that conversion issue, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So that's the problem. And the point is, these things ultimately will filter into these individual actions of doubling your positive forces, doubling your positive forces, halving your negative forces. Getting it mixed up in my own head now. These ultimately then form the basis of your one-page plan. This becomes the how. These are specific objectives or actions that you can do in order to make things better, basically.
Yeah, so to recap then, well, because we started with where are we now, where do we want to be? We did like a little now where, and we're using the one-page plan tool to figure out the how.
Yes.
So we're at £1 million sales with this conversion rate, this size team, we want to be here. This is the how are we going to do it? Because people often just blunder in and go, oh, this year I need to get, I'm going to double my website traffic. Well, why? Does that actually get you what you want? That's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to get to the bottom of these things, aren't we? So we did a mind map, we Paretoed, we came up with our 3, 4, maybe no more than 3 or 4, I would say, topics. We went onto the force field, we force fielded them. We're going to improve website traffic. We're going to reduce drop-offs on the landing page, etc. We've got those sheets of force fields. How long have we spent on that? half an hour per topic.
Half an hour, 40 minutes, and that's times by 3, so it's a big
So
chunk
it's
of
taken
time.
another like hour and a half, 2 hours. That's where most of our time is.
Yeah,
This is the longest time spent on any of the sections, isn't it? Because this is where we do get into a bit more detail.
yeah,
Because we're going to spend 30, 40 minutes talking about sales, right?
yeah.
What can we do more of? What should we do less of?
And that's the importance of why you do all the stuff before, so you get everything down, but then you kind of remove all of the stuff that's in there that's not important, because you're not then like going, oh, well, we can spend a bit of time on this, and this, and then you're suddenly like, oh my God, we've done, we've been here for a day and we've achieved
Well, one
nothing.
thing I noticed on when you're doing this with people, when you're doing this force field section, I've noticed people go, oh, well, I'm on sales. Oh, yeah, and another thing, we're invoicing. We need to get the T's and C's on the invoice. Like, it's not really a sales issue. That should have been on the mind map. It wasn't. Let's stick to sales. This is what we're doing, you know.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that might be an important thing, but it wasn't worthy of mentioning before, so let's not get distracted.
Yeah.
Let's stick on the topic that we're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah.
And again, the idea is if sales is in there, well, why is it in there? Is it because we want to make it bigger, littler, more streamlined? Like, you've got to have a thing. If you're trying to do more of something good and less of something bad, you've got to know what you're trying to do to sales, haven't you?
Yeah, and again, this is where it becomes, that can become part of a wider discussion around kind of what does your ideal customer look like? Like we always talk about sustainable competitive advantage, where that can really help you and get your message out in terms of how you stick out and how how you're better than your competitor and how you're ultimately going to compete with them.
Now you demonstrate that, yeah.
Exactly. So there's even space on the one-page plan to kind of disclose what your sustainable competitive advantage is. That can go in your where section.
Yeah.
But generally, you haven't got. It's something that you could explore before you do a one-page plan. It's something you can do after, and it can drop in. But ultimately, those two things are very closely linked.
So we're probably 3 hours in. We've had a break for a cuppa. That's it. We're straight back. You know, no messing about here. We've gone through the first 3 stages, and we've got force field on. What was it? Sales, suppliers, pricing. I can't remember. We've got these 3 topics. We've got a list of things, going into a bit of detail, but not too much detail. You know, this is how we're going to improve website traffic, new catalogue, new whatever. We've got a list of the things that we can do more of and things we should do less of. What's the 4th stage, and how do we use those force fields to enter the 4th step?
So before we get into the 4th step, we reuse Pareto analysis. So again, we're potentially going to have on each one of those strategic areas about 5 times about 30 different things potentially.
Because you'd have a whole list of things to improve and a whole list of things to, well, improve.
Exactly, and again, that's far too much to like roll out immediately. Like, okay, well, let's do these 30 things in the next month. Perfect. Times that by 3, you've got 90 things to do suddenly.
Yeah.
So again, we're using Pareto analysis. We're looking at the 80-20, right? Which of these specific objectives or action points, if I do now, will provide 80% of benefit for 20% of the effort. So that's again where you'll get your wider team up. They'll get their old ballpoint pens out and start ticking where they think the areas are most important are. You do that for all 3 of those 3 force fields you pull together.
Yeah.
And that should ultimately give you your 9 action points you should be focusing on, based on kind of the time period you set. So we said it could be a monthly one, weekly, quarterly, annual. Depends on how regularly you want to actually update this. We encourage it to be as much as possible, but
it might be a bit too much to do it weekly. But yeah, you need to do it regular enough that you don't miss changes in the market. If you're sitting going, I need to improve my website traffic, and a month in, you're not allowed to sell the thing you sell online anymore. Well, you need a new plan, don't you? So you've got to do it often enough that you keep up to date. And
similarly, you don't want to be the enemy of this is time, and you generally come out of these sessions incredibly motivated. You're going to do stuff, you're going to action it, but over time you get distracted, other things get on your plate, and suddenly these action points you said you're definitely going to do haven't been done. Like you get to I've done quarterly coaching before where you've done a 1-page plan, everyone's really excited, and then you come to the end of quarter one and go, all right, well, let's see what we're doing. And you're like, well, yeah, I was going to do that, but then...
I started that.
Yeah.
How far did you get? Oh, I emailed the guy. Oh, is that all you did?
Yeah, and he never got back to me. And it's just like, oh, actually, yeah, he did. Oh, yeah, sorry, I've completely forgotten about that. So, I mean, an element that falls on me as a coach, and I've learned a lot that even though you may
don't let people put too many things on their list.
Yeah, exactly.
And say they're going to do them straight away, because people just don't.
Yeah, and that's where you just need to be a little bit smarter in terms of prodding them and going, remember you said you were going to do that? And they go, oh, yeah, of course I'll do that.
You've also got to remember as well that you might come up with these, like these 9 things. Let's say you had 3 Pareto points, 3 things per one is about 9 action points. You could easily have 4 topics and 4 points. It could be a decent sized list here, but you're still running a business. It's not, you haven't all of a sudden got a month where there's nothing else to do but solve these 9 issues.
Yeah, I'll stop making sales so I can focus on the process.
You've kind of only got, the best will in the world, maybe an hour a night, and you could say, well, I'll dedicate the weekends. 4, 5, 6 working days in a month. It's not like you've all of a sudden got loads of free time to do it. You're still running a business. And if one of the things is you're too busy, well, where the hell do you find the time to do a list of 50 things? You're just never going to do it. Yeah.
Or if your work-life balance is completely off kilter, suddenly you're like, oh, well, now you've got to do all of this extra stuff.
You're actually just making it worse and putting more pressure on, aren't you? So right, okay, so we've used Pareto tool twice. We did it on the mind map. We came up with a bunch of stuff. We force fielded them. That's where we spent most of our time, really working out what the actual issues are within those areas. Everyone's came to the front, they've circled. If it's just you, you've picked 3, because we're 3 from each force field, because we're not allowed to just pick everything. That defeats the purpose. What do we do next then?
So this is when it goes into the final tool, which is, we call it the one-page plan. It's essentially a format of...
It's a template, isn't it?
Yeah, that you drop everything that you've done in so far into that template. So, as we said, we talked about now, where, how. So.
And how many pages is that, Jack?
Well, funny enough, Martin, it's 1.
It's 1.
Yeah.
I'll ask that to be a little bit silly, but it's it's not too big. The idea is it's a single pager that sits on your desk. It's on the the sun visor of the car. It's with you, isn't it? That's the point. It's a constant reminder without having to read a book every time you want to catch up on what you said you would do.
I'm sure the DVLA will probably dispute what you said there.
Possibly, yes. But I don't mean to like read as you're driving around. But yeah,
paste it across the windscreen.
The point is, it's with you. It's to hand.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's ideas of business plans are these 100-page documents where you spend ages pulling together and then you don't look at it again.
Yeah.
Or you do, and you go, oh, right, okay, we've changed this, right, so I'm now going to spend 4 hours updating the business plan, whilst a one-page plan is just there.
Yeah. It's like quick and dirty, isn't it? It's like, it's 4 hours you might go, it's not that quick. Well, yeah, I mean, theoretically you could do it quicker, but it's worth spending the time and getting a solid plan. Most people have got half a day. As busy as you are, you've got half a day. Just don't watch Peaky Blinders on a weekend. Don't pick something you enjoy and then just work on this instead once and it's done, isn't it?
Again, loving your current references. Peaky Blinders.
Listen, nobody watches stuff live now. Everyone waits till it's finished to see if it was worth watching, don't they?
Yeah, next thing you'll be watching that new series, The Wire.
Yeah, no, I've heard about that. I might get it. Hey, listen, I don't waste my time watching like every new starter that comes on the telly. I'm too busy perfecting one page.
Yeah, doing business plans.
But anyway, so we've got 9 things. We had 3 topics. We've got 3 things for each one. We've wrote sales. How much detail are we putting on this part, and how much detail goes onto the plan? And again, I think we can overlay the template. Can't give you a completed one because we haven't done it for you, but
yeah, we can't do that for you, unfortunately.
So smart objectives come in here. It's going to be, what, I can't remember what the S stands for. Is it simple? Simple, measurable, action, achievable, realistic. Timely. So if we're going to have a new website landing page, we've got to make sure that it's clear what the thing is, so anybody externally can look and go, well, it was done because there was a thing that was done. It can't be think about whether you might want to do this. Well, how do you ever prove that it was done or not? It's got to be something that can be ticked off as done, a date, and who's doing it.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Or who's accountable for it.
So how we do it is that in terms of the how part of the one-page plan is that there's a box for the overall strategic area. So that's generally what's in the middle of your force field, so sales. And then within that there is the breakdown of the action points that you've agreed within the force field. They just drop in nicely, and again...
So the three things that were circled drop into the next box.
And again, you need to, as you said, bear in mind the wording to ensure that they are smart, and ultimately they can be ticked off as done. And then, as you said, there's space for an individual and a deadline, and all of that's agreed there and then. There's no kind of like, well, I'll try and get it done for the end of Q2, and it's just like, no, we need a firm commitment.
And what's good here about it, so smart objectives here, don't pick something woolly and huge. The idea is we're trying to pick something that can be done before we do this again.
Yeah.
So if you're doing this monthly, you can't go, well, that's kind of a summer thing. It shouldn't be on the list then. Put something else on the list.
Yeah. And
something else that you can do in the next month.
That's the question you should ask maybe at the force field stage, or potentially at this stage, like, is this too big a thing? Do I need to break it down into a smaller piece?
Yeah, because sales might be too big. Website might be a better component to put on the force field if all your issues are website related.
And similarly, having something woolly like double sales, and you're like, well, okay, how?
Because there might be 50 things to help you double the sales. You know, more advertising, better conversion rates. Yeah, there's too many.
Definitely.
You just got to go on LinkedIn to see the 32 things you must do this year to double your sales.
Yeah, guaranteed to double it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 32 guaranteed. Yeah.
And
so go on, sorry, Jeff.
Yeah, and I suppose we've kind of touched on the how, but the now and the where are obviously important as well, because they kind of set the parameters of where you are at the moment against where you want to be. And there's nothing within the one-page plan which specifically gets you to consider that. So there are some tools that we use in our sessions, like diagnostic tools, to help you understand where you are at the moment.
Yeah.
But similarly, if you're doing it by yourself, like, what you need to be thinking about is like, how would I describe my business as it is at the moment to, say, if I had a board meeting of lots of non-exec directors tomorrow, how would I summarise to them what position my business is at the moment? So it may include some financial information, like, this is what these are the monthly sales we're making, this is what we turned over last year, this is our staffing levels, but then also it's talking about, well, where are some of the issues within our business that we want to be focusing on? And then similarly on the where side is, again, there's no specific tools that we think about the where. There are other things that we offer, different sessions that we do in terms of like vision mapping.
So where do you want to go here? Because some people don't know where they want to be, do they?
Exactly. But again,
it's quite a hard challenge. You know, many times I'll sit and go, well, where do you want to be? And they go, I don't really know.
Yeah, it's really...
There's no embarrassment in that.
Yeah.
Quite often people started a business because they were good at it, and they got made redundant, so they went, I'll buy a van and I'll fill it with tools and I'll get going. You know, that's about as deep as some people are as to why they're in business. It's often accidental even.
Yeah, it is. It is quite surprising. But it's also really interesting when there is still some kernel of purpose in whatever anyone does, and it's really rewarding to get that out of them. And
it's also worth saying here as well is, again, at the start I stressed this isn't a business one-page plan, it's a one-page plan. If you're doing it as a group thing about a business, then it is a business one.
Yeah.
But if you were a sole trader and we were doing this, one of the things on there could be, well, I want more free time.
Yeah.
That's not a business thing at all. Because the business is selfish and all-consuming. It would go, give me all of your time. And it will if you let it.
Yeah, get rid of these pesky family.
Yeah, it's like, hold on, why are you eating? It's the only pleasure in life. Please let me eat.
Yeah.
But this, the business is all-consuming. And again, it's worth remembering this might be for an individual. Retirement might be on there. Sale of the business might be on there. I wouldn't recommend doing that with your team.
Yeah.
So you've got to think carefully. But if you want to get your business ready for sale, then you might focus more on your processes and making sure you can demonstrate and a buyer can easily see what's going on. It's not just about. It's not always business.
No, it's true. In fact, when James started, our producer, we did a one-page planning session, didn't we? He's nodding.
Off camera, so you can't see that. Yeah.
But it was really interesting, and none of it related to, because James had just started, so it's not as if he's like had anything to focus on in terms of work. It was more like, how do I get myself in the best position to provide?
Yeah. I mean, in theory, you could do this for anything. You could be an athlete, could you not? And do a one-page plan as an athlete. Well, what do you want to do? Well, my where is, 2 World Cups from now, I want to be lifting the trophy, right? Well, how are you going to get yourself as fit as possible, get yourself signed a bit professionally?
We were talking about, was it a professional swimmer? Was it you or was it someone else?
Someone mentioned a professional swimmer and something I was listening to maybe yesterday or just last week.
Where
someone who set their thing, he said, I'm going to win a gold medal. Got trounced in the first Olympics he went to, but then won like 7 gold medals on the second one or something. Yeah,
because he basically set himself a very clear purpose of any decision was based on whether it would make him swim faster in the pool. And
there's a great book on this, Will It Make the Boat Go Faster? I can't remember the name now, sorry, the author, but it was someone who set it was a rower who wanted an Olympic gold. And they talk about filter everything through the lens of, will this make my boat go faster?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got the chance to go on, question of sport. Will that make me go faster? No.
So I won't go.
Don't do it then. Yeah. Now, it's quite harsh, and that to some degree is the all-consuming business. It will consume everything if you let it.
In sports, I think it's very unique in that sense. So you have to be very selfish and
got to be a little bit mad and dedicated and committed and all of those things.
We can be a bit more relaxed as business people,
especially if we want to achieve that all-important balance.
Yeah.
But it is worth bearing in mind. It's not a business plan. It's a plan. It's a one-page plan. It can be applied to anything. Our context is that most of the people are business people. But quite often I'll do this with a single person. It'll be 2 to improve their business, but 1 to improve their life. That happens quite a lot.
Yeah.
And certainly when you're dumping things down on the mind map, quite often in there is like, I want to put holidays on there. Why? It's got nothing to do with the business. Well, I'm doing it to create a better life for me. I want more holidays. I want more free time. And it doesn't mean I want to go to Bali. It might just mean I don't want to work as many hours.
Yeah.
I would like to actually have a week off.
Yeah, I'd like to actually have my Saturdays back rather than going off and doing some work.
So, Jack, we've kind of, whether that made perfect sense or not, who knows, but we have laid bare our thought process here. We do a mind map, we Pareto the mind map to get our 3, maybe 4, but no more than that, I would say.
Yep.
Our few things that we throw into the force field, we spend a few hours on the force field, getting into the nitty gritty, into the long grass on it, coming up with the things to do more of and less of, or the things to double the good things and half the bad things. We've Paretoed that again briefly. We've come up with 3 things from there. We've dropped it onto the template. We've got our 9 or 12 things. We've set the time scale. We knew that going in. We knew we were coming up with a month or a 90-day plan. So the actions we came up with, we knew could be done in that time frame. Where do people go wrong after that then? Because you've spent this half a day, against all odds, you've found your half a day, you're not going to start the wire. You're going to get this one-page plan done. What are the most common mistakes people make after they've got that plan?
Is that it's meant to be a living, breathing document, and it's just kind of put to one side.
They put it in the drawer.
Yeah, they go, brilliant, fantastic, I'll get started on that, and then it's just forgotten about, and it's just the case of, I'll get around to it, or I've got this other things to do, and there's a fundamental lack of accountability for people, and this document's all about accountability. It's got people's names on, it's got deadlines. You as a business,
it's a non-ambiguous thing. It's like, well, that was a clear action.
That everyone agreed to.
It was either done or not.
Exactly, and for business owners by themselves, it's a very lonely place where you have nobody to hold you accountable for.
Yeah.
Similarly, as someone with a business who is delegating some of this stuff, like it can be quite daunting, irritating, all-consuming to be kind of constantly prodding someone, going, "Have you done it? Have you done it? Have you done it?" And
probably more what happens there is I think business owners will say this is really important and Jack's going to do it, but then not allow Jack any time to do it.
Yeah.
Say, oh Jack, have you done all of those other things that actually we all agreed weren't as important, but in the heat of it, Yeah, you just got to get that done. It's like, well, when are you going to give Jack any time to actually do this? And I think business owners are sometimes quite guilty of assuming that their team should, like bleed for their business the same as they do. But I don't think that's a reasonable expectation. I think you should expect someone to do the hours you pay them for.
Yeah.
And if you want them to help you with the strategy side, you've got to allocate the time to let them do it properly, haven't you?
Yeah, rather than you've got a weekend.
get yourself. You're not allowed to watch Peaky Blinders, so I don't think you can make that decision for your team, can you? Your team might volunteer to not watch Peaky Blinders, but you can't make them. So I think if you're going to say, well, I want you to spend half an hour a day on this, you've got to give them the time, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got to give them that half an hour rather than...
And not also expect the same productivity.
Yeah.
You can't just go, but your targets aren't changed.
Yeah.
Well, where am I going to do
you go
that?
and hammer them with chargeable hours are down or whatever, depending on what industry you're in. But yeah.
You're not speaking from experience there by any chance, are you?
No comment.
So, right, okay, and so we've persuaded people of the importance of the one-page plan. They're gonna sit and spend that half a day, ideally in a block. Because once you're in the flow, you don't want to then pick it up a week later and go, why did I write that on the mind map?
What the hell does that mean?
Once you're in, you gotta get on with it, haven't you?
Yeah.
We know it's either a single person activity. Ideally, it's at least two, because there should be a facilitator, even if there's just one. Doesn't have to be us. It can be someone you trust. Ideally, someone who runs a business or knows business. Maybe do a skill swap. You facilitate their mind map in one-page plan another time. But at least, ideally, two people. No more than 6 or 8.
Yep.
If it's a whole business, you should have people representative of the different levels within your hierarchy. There should be someone from the top leadership team, the management team, and then the workforce as a whole, because you want a range of ideas.
Yes.
We're coming up with a document, we know how long it is, we're going to crack on, and in the perfect world, we get those 9 things done, business improves, because we all said they're the things that will improve business. Are we done? Is that it? Nothing else to do ever again? Or?
If only, we fixed everything in one quarter. No, I mean, the point of it is that there'll be potentially some things within that strategic area which be the next thing that comes onto the list. Right, okay,
because there was 50 things on the mind map, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was 50 things on the mind map. There was 30 things on each of those force fields that we wanted to do.
Yeah, if we solve 3 of the things on 3 of the force fields, we've still got 100. So there's always a top 3 is what I was getting at.
Yeah, and in reality, although this is a fantastic opportunity, things will happen over that quarter which you may not have foreseen, which then suddenly become more important. And like, all right, well, actually, whilst we were doing this, we realised that this was an issue. So suddenly that's now more important than what we were looking at before, or it's something that we just completely didn't comprehend that was going to be an issue, and now suddenly it's something we need to fix really quickly.
Often, one of the other directors here, Nick Wilson, talks quite often about how when you try to look at a problem, you start pulling at the thread, and you realise just, the thing you're pulling at wasn't what you thought it was.
No.
The issue identified as something else, but I can't give an example, but we couldn't fix sales because actually we realised the website was wrong. So actually we couldn't get the landing page right because we had to rebuild the website. That's why we didn't get it done. All right, well, be still closer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
the idea about this is progress, isn't it? Identifiable progress.
Yeah, small incremental changes, and also it's an agile document. Again, going back to this 100-page business plan, if something like that happened, it'd be like, well, might as well just put this in the bin, because as opposed to like, right, okay, let's pivot quickly, let's reprioritize, let's relook at the mind map, the force field. Do we need to put something else into the force field, spend a little bit more time on that, spend an hour on that, and then going into after, assuming that's quarter 1, what do we do in quarter 2? And this thing is a live document, ever changing, rolling, potentially on a
would you recommend in quarter 2 pulling up the mind map from quarter 1, or would you just do another mind map?
Interesting.
Because there's a danger of like distorting the conversation, isn't there?
Yeah, but also you don't necessarily want to duplicate work if stuff's happened. I mean, it's probably worth being referred back to, looking at it. If there's anything based on what's happened previously, do we need to revisit this? Has anything become more relevant now?
Because this thing got 2 votes by a few of you. It wasn't in the top 3, but is that still an issue? All right, well, let's get straight on with that. Then let's save the first hour, spend longer on the other parts if you wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. But
And also, if you do a quarterly session with someone, you don't just do a mind map every quarter, do you?
no, you don't.
Because that would get pretty dull pretty quick, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
The idea is you show people how to cook this dish, and they start cooking it themselves. And they come to you and go, "These are, I've done it. This is right. Do you mind helping us on this?" And you pull out other tools and solve other things in other ways too.
Exactly. Yeah. This is only one area of like business strategy, like in terms of the planning side of things. But then there's getting into the fixing of stuff as well, and providing specific, as he said, specific tools for specific issues that they've encountered.
One of the most rewarding things I've done on this was a one-page plan, probably about 3 months ago now, where we did the what's the change success model tool that you use, and basically their score showed that they had to change. There was no alternative. The need to change was overwhelming. And as a result, we had a really good session, loads of ideas. It landed perfectly. They've gone off and they've done, because they had to do the things. There is a danger that if you come up with this one-page plan for someone who doesn't feel there is any need to change, that you're not really going to get the result you want, isn't there?
Yeah, totally. And
someone who's completely happy, everything's perfect, well, don't bother.
Yeah, and that can be a really dangerous thing for change, because if you don't think you need to, then that will be reflected in what you need to do, or how readily you chase up these action points. Because if you don't believe in it, if you don't think it's necessary, then you're not going to do it, and that will quickly come out in the wash when you come back and sit down and at the end of quarter two rather, and go, what happened there? Wasn't important, was it?
And there's a huge danger as well that if you do this with your team, as the sole business owner, with a team who got really behind it, really engaged, because we've listened to your podcast the other week with Danny, you went, you got to get your teams involved, understand what they want, etc. All right, go on, I'll shut them up, I'll do a one-page plan. But then if you do nothing with it, there's a danger that those 5 or 6 people who thought they had a say, they'll know that you've just paid lip service to the whole thing, and you'll actually damage. It's worse to do a one-page plan and then do nothing with it, isn't it? Yeah,
because then at some point an action is going to come across your desk for approval or input, and if you're there going like, this isn't going to happen, then you disenfranchise the people that you were trying to encourage. The very
people who you gave false hope to. You may as well. So you can get this wrong, can't you? Yeah.
Massively, yeah. And that's the importance of committing to it as a business owner. If you're getting your wider team in, it's easier when it's by yourself because you've already identified the need. You haven't been forced into it by anyone other than yourself.
I think you touched on something there that made me think of something as well. If you do this by yourself, I don't know if it's one of the saboteurs or not, but like it's very easy to let yourself off with some made up crap reason for why you didn't get around to it.
Yeah.
Whereas even if there's just two people in the business, one very senior and even the most junior person, if they're part of that feedback loop, it's much harder to even lie to them. Even though you're the absolute senior in every responsibilities role in every way. It's very hard to include someone else, but then just you can't lie to them as easy as you can lie to yourself, can't you? Hence the need for somebody else ideally to be involved.
It's difficult, and it's very difficult for a junior to hold their boss accountable, but it's better than no one being held accountable. And it's really interesting because we found that just the act of putting stuff down on paper makes things more tangible. It makes people more likely to go and do it, because it's like, oh God, well, previously these had just been ideas in my head.
Because there's a thing, isn't there? An idea that isn't written down is just an idea. If it's written down but not clear,
because nobody knows it's an idea apart from you. So if I don't make it happen,
I can't remember the sequence now, but unless it is a person, a date, and a clear objective, well, it's nothing. It's just an idea, isn't it?
So it's so important to have this process and put stuff down, but also have that accountability. And at the end of the day, like, nobody's superhuman. Anyone can let themselves off.
Yeah.
That's why it's the important of having anybody going like, remember you said you were going to do that? Did you do it? Why not? Do you think that?
It sounds harsh, doesn't it? And also it's a bit weird because I've been in rooms with people where I go, oh, why did that not happen? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, these are people who've been in business twice as long as me.
Yeah.
They've got big, successful businesses. You sometimes feel a bit weird going, why did you not do that? Mm-hmm. But also you just see that, they go, yeah, I just didn't commit the time. Yeah. And very quickly you can get to it's quite easy to root out when people are just spinning a yarn. Mm-hmm. When it was a target that they said was achievable, you go, oh, but you said this was an achievable, realistic target. That was really important. You said that, not me.
Yeah.
And that's worth pointing out to you. The facilitator isn't prioritising these. The facilitator isn't coming up with the actions.
What to do.
All they're doing is facilitating. Mm-hmm. They can't, this was a fitness thing, they can't do the crunches for you. Mm-hmm. They can ask you if you did your crunches. Well, that's why it's not working, right? But they're not going to do them for you. You came up with a thing, you didn't do it. There's nowhere to hide, is there?
Yeah, and people who've seen that as a coach, you have to read the riot act and go, it's not good enough. It's like, hey, it's not my job. Ultimately, you identify these as areas of importance.
To improve your life, not mine.
Exactly. Yeah. And my value only comes from you doing what you do. Because if you don't do what we've agreed, then I might as well not be here, frankly.
Do it yourself and put it in the drawer. Mm-hmm. But spend half an hour on it and put it in the drawer, and then tell us it didn't work. Yeah, you can tell yourself that all day,
But even us having that conversation with them is better than nobody having that conversation. You just finding, as you said, finding that plan in the drawer like 5 months later and going, oh, I didn't do any of this. Oh, well, I've been busy, so never mind.
Well, I haven't talked about this, but as an interesting offer here, if you do your own one-page plan, feel free to email it in, and we will just put it in our drawer for 90 days, and then we'll ring you in 90 days. Feel free to get the accountability bit without having to pay us to be involved. Mm-hmm. It's a bit like MasterChef. Well, cook your own food and we'll taste it. You know, I love this food analogy. I don't know why.
I don't know why.
Just embedded in it. But send us your one-page plan. We won't look at it. We'll not critique it. We'll literally file it, and we'll just ring you up and go, did you get that done? Mm-hmm. And it might surprise you how many people come up with a great idea that they just don't get around to. And there's a couple of reasons why. It might have been the wrong thing. You might have said what you think is you've picked. If it's not the most important thing to change, then the need to change it won't be there, which might be one of the reasons why you don't do it. Or you might not have believed in the change. It's important to get them right, isn't it?
As you said, it's either, this is what I probably should do rather than what I should do.
Yeah.
And then it's also, have you broken that thing down into a small enough chunk? Because
doubling the size of your business isn't something you can do in 90 days.
No, without something happening beforehand.
Yeah.
Without there being some clear, understandable steps that need to happen. Yeah. That can be measured before.
If you're a team of two, you could get another couple of people in, fair dues, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah.
All right then. Thank you very much, Jack.
No worries.
As always, we hope you've enjoyed that. There really isn't any excuse now. Get your one-page plan done. Send it in. We will happily put it in our drawer and ring you up when the deadline hits on the tasks. We'll not charge you for that. And if you find that you didn't do any of it, maybe the one-page plan, you didn't quite get it right, we'll happily give you a refresher.
Or you're missing that accountability.
Or you didn't get someone to kick your backside, yeah. So also, you might think 4 hours is too long. You can do probably half an hour or so a killer coffee, which we're happy to do for free.
Yes.
We will do a mini version of this. It's not the same thing, you won't get the same results, but we'll happily help you work on 3 things you should be doing in the next 30 days.
Yep.
Very happy to help you with that as well. Whatever you do, wish you all the very best in the 2023 calendar year.
Yeah, absolutely.